Hey everyone, welcome to the Vienna Whyte Roundtable Season 1, Episode 5. I'm your host, Millie Rouge, and today we have technically four incredible guests today that we're super excited to have on. The very first guest I'd like to introduce you to is 0Stella from Edmonton, Alberta.
Hi Millie, thanks for having me.
Beautiful. And our second guest is Marley Claire, also from Edmonton, Alberta.
Hi, I'm Marley.
Beautiful, thank you. And our special guest today, I guess you could say, we have Carolina Marie from Calgary.
Hi.
Beautiful. Thank you, ladies, for being on this show today. I'm so glad to have you guys on here. Today's topic that we're actually going to be chatting about is female empowerment in the music industry, which I think we can all relate to because as far as I know, we are all females. So we are going to just chat about some of the aspects of the music industry and what it's like having experience as females. So I'm going to jump into our first question here. And again, feel free to respond to whatever resonates with you. Can you ladies tell me why you think it's important to have female equality in the music industry? So whoever wants to tackle it first, go ahead.
Well, I feel it's important because music, a lot like race car driving or horse riding, equestrianism, like has nothing to do with your physical ability to do any of it. There's instruments everywhere other than like your voice. So like I really see absolutely no point why we can't actually just compete. And like compete's a horrible word in this industry, but like collaborate together. And everybody has so many strengths, like even within a gender, everyone has strengths that lend them better to one aspect of the community than the other. Mm-hmm. And it's completely illogical in my view to pit one against the other. Like it's a waste of everybody's time.
Absolutely. I agree. Marley, I know, Marley, that you are quite a big country fan. And I know in the country industry, they've been talking a lot about females having more empowerment. Do you have any opinions kind of on that or like any thoughts?
Right. I think it's definitely headed in the right direction now, which is really good. With like Casey Musgraves, like Miranda Lambert are a couple of my favorites there. Mm-hmm. But it's definitely for sure in country, it's like super male dominated. So that can be, it's kind of hard to like break out of that even in terms of like what the songs are generally about.
Right.
So I do think it's headed in the right direction. But yeah, it's something for sure. It's one of those things that's hard to kind of break that tradition.
Totally. And Carolina and Maria, what do you guys kind of think about female equality in the music industry?
Well, I think it's really good if you collaborate with people that you want to collaborate with or that you feel an inclination and like an instinct that you want to collaborate with them no matter if they're male or female. And I think just the way that the brain it like biologically is made up, there are certain perspectives that males generally have and certain perspectives that women have. So it's all about that dance and those energies coming together. Mm-hmm. And in the industry that, like, for example, there are, I guess, more male producers, but I think it's just because of the way that we're built. Maybe they gravitate towards that profession. Just like there are maybe more male engineers in like electrical engineer but maybe more female teachers in elementary schools. So it's just maybe perhaps just the way that we are born. But as long as you're doing what you love and putting your best work forward and everything, I think it's great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think it's a lot of conditioning too. Like when we're born and we're exposed to so much media, a lot of it's kind of like just what you see on TV and what you see on Instagram. You see a lot of like male oriented things. And I think that's where females start to kind of think like, oh, I don't know if I can do this because like all I see is males doing this. But I think we're starting to see the incline of like really seeing females more in different roles that are, like you said, like the producing and stuff like that. And I think it's really cool to see. What do you guys think as of decades? What decade do you think really sparked the beginning of female empowerment? Does anyone have any ideas of where you think this started to happen? Like, there's really no right or wrong answer, just in your opinion.
Well, the biggest one I can think of is the 90s. And I was just going to say, it almost feels a little bit like the 90s in terms of, certainly in terms of country music, the way Marley was saying. A friend of mine was at a music festival a few months ago, and he said there was 7 artists picked out to showcase at one of the conferences, and of those 7, 5 of them were women and 2 of them were men, and every one of the women were just writing songs that brought such a fresh perspective to traditional subjects, and maybe exploring subjects that haven't even been explored yet. Whereas my friend said that the 2 random guys that were also picked were like dead on the nose, trucks and all of that stuff, drinking and just all that classic stuff, you know. And I think it's a really exciting time for women. Like, you've got Lizzo coming through now, and and I think a lot of them draw huge inspiration, like from Missy Elliott from the 90s, and Missy Elliott's back now and everything, like, and like Fiona Apple is coming back too from the 90s, and Garbage are still going. They got dropped from their major label and then went indie themselves, and I think a lot of people thought that they dropped off the map, but I think it's a really exciting time for women. It's great.
I totally agree. Caroline and Maria, you guys are actually from Calgary, and I know they have a pretty heavy country music scene. How do you find with kind of like what 0Stella said, do you find it is more male orientated right now, or is it kind of a good balance?
Well, we see like some like men and women. I don't like, nothing stands out as in like, oh my gosh, there are so many males and only like a small little tiny group of women. For me, in my brain, it's kind of like almost, it feels like almost kind of
a little
half
bit equal,
and half, kind of. It, I guess here in Calgary they have a bigger country music industry. Like I guess you don't hear that much pop, I guess you could say. So the ones that I'm thinking in my head, they are more on the countryside.
Right, totally. Yeah, no, that's actually very good to hear, because I haven't been really in the Calgary music scene, but I kind of assumed that it was pretty country heavy orientated just because of the nature of Calgary. But that's actually interesting to hear that it's equal. That actually kind of makes me very happy. I wanted to ask you ladies, can you tell us about a time, and if you haven't had this experience, this is awesome, but have you ever had a time where you felt your gender maybe interfered in an opportunity? Now, this doesn't have to be music related. If you have a music related experience, that would be awesome, but maybe can you tell us about a time where you felt your gender interfered in an opportunity you could have had, or you missed out on because of just being unequal?
Oh, okay. This is like from when I was like 5.
That's amazing.
But in school, we like there was a soccer team, and they only allowed guys, and I was like, no. So I got like all my friends together, and we asked the coach if we could make a team. And so they let us play with boys and girls. So that was something that was.
That's awesome. That's badass, actually. I'm very proud that you did that. I'm really happy to hear. Even at a young age, you were still like just putting out the female power. I love it. How about you, Marley, and you, 0Stella? Can you guys think of a time maybe where you were set back by your gender?
I don't know if I can think of any really like specific examples right now. I guess a little bit, yeah, it's not like super specific, but just kind of overall, I feel like sometimes females are just taken a little bit like less seriously.
Yeah, totally.
So, tons of like tiny examples of that happening, but I can't think of any like major opportunities.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know there are some subtle like times where it will happen, but sometimes people don't even notice because of
Yeah,
how used to it we are, and we don't even see it as being a problem when sometimes someone else can point out and you're like, yeah, I guess that was kind of wrong, like, and you don't really even see it, like, just because of how it's happened over the years. But what about you, Stella? Have you ever had an experience like that? Or
Um, I view it in a funny way just because my mum grew up in Ireland. Like when I was growing up, she was a chartered accountant, and when she qualified, she was one of the best in the country, and she was the only woman. So I've grown up in a house where my mum was a really strong female and worked really hard and fought really hard for her corner. So I think I've always grown up expecting to have to fight my own corner, but also believe that I absolutely deserve it if I work hard enough. So I think I was kind of sheltered from um, some negative experiences in that respect in terms of my gender. Also, I went to an all-girls school for 14 years in Ireland, so that kind of put a bit of a skew on it also. And then when I went to university, it was for art, and it was very well balanced, men to women there. And then when I moved to Canada, I was always in bands pretty much surrounded by men. So if we went anywhere, we were going as a group, and so we kind of had that camaraderie, like had everybody's back.
right.
And I only really started like experiencing like subtle things like that in the last couple of years since I've gone solo, when I'm having to show up to conferences and stuff, especially in my early days when I didn't have much of a product together and there wasn't much really to talk about or to sell. So everything was left kind of a bit open to interpretation. So people kind of sometimes took advantage of that situation or just
Right.
skewed it into their own
Yeah.
agendas kind of thing. So on the whole, though, I think I've been okay. I haven't had the same experience some of my friends have had.
Yeah, that's really awesome though, that you from like a very young age were kind of taught like those values and you had someone to look up to. Like I think that'll stick for the rest of your life, right? Because you were grown up with that. So I think that's really cool actually. I like the perspective too from coming from Ireland, because it brings different perspectives from different countries too. I'm curious to know who you guys have as your top 3 female musicians / artists that you maybe look up to or you're inspired by. So whoever wants to start, jump right in.
Okay, one female artist that we absolutely love is Julia Michaels. Yeah. Have you guys heard of her?
I love her. She's a great songwriter.
Yeah, she's awesome. And do you have any? Marina and the Diamonds is another one. From Wales. Is she from Wales? Yeah, and then somebody that just kind of popped into my head, because we were talking about women, and I thought of women producers, like Tegan and Sarah. They're great, and the producer is female, and they did a really good job on their last album.
Yeah.
Their CD. We saw their live show, and when we walked in, there was a TV outside of the theater, and they were actually playing live, and we thought that it was kind of like a pre-recorded thing because it sounded so good, but it was actually them playing live. So
wow, that's really awesome.
Surprise.
Yeah, I like those top 3 that you gave. Those are all, and when I think of those artists, they're all very empowering for sure. What about you, Marley? Who are your kind of top 3 favorites?
So definitely my number 1 is Casey Musgraves. She's been my number 1 for a pretty long time. I'm a huge fan. I think she's just super incredible songwriter. So she's definitely my number 1. I really like actually Taylor Swift. I look up to a lot, mostly in terms of branding and stuff like that. I think she's done just an absolutely incredible job of getting to the top and then staying there and constantly just switching up her style and just being able to maintain that fan base and constantly grow it. Super inspiring as well. And then Julia Michaels is awesome too, actually.
Right? Yeah, she's cool. And how about you, Estella? Who are your kind of top 3 favorites?
Yeah, first and foremost always is Shirley Manson from Garbage. That woman just never says die, and she speaks her mind always, and she's now so politically outspoken against gender bias and all that kind of stuff. She's incredible.
Mm-hmm.
And then Saint Vincent, who is just disgusting on guitar. She's so good. And to have, like, again, especially talking about women in the music industry, talk about like a game changer. She had like a guitar custom designed for her by Ernie Ball, and she made sure to design it ergonomically for people of a slighter frame. And so that's really amazing. And now she's turned over into producing as well. She's just been producing Slater Keeney's new record as well, which is brilliant. And I would say PJ Harvey is a huge influence on how I write. I love how she's so free with her voice. But also the Beaches are just kind of rocking my world at the moment
They're
as well.
so cool.
Yeah, they're great.
I love that they're Canadian. Anytime they're Canadian, it's like, yep, gotta support.
Totally.
That's beautiful. Okay, and I have an interesting topic about how women are portrayed in the music industry. What are your thoughts on women being sexualized? Like, I know a lot of women that are in the industry, they are really proud of their sexuality, and then there's a different side of the sexuality of women where they are almost like forced into it to sell. So I kind of want to know what your ladies' opinions are on it, and if you think whether it's necessarily wrong or is it okay. Like, what are kind of your opinions on that?
I think that's definitely true. They're super like over-sexualized. I don't know like what I want to say exactly. It's just yeah, kind of just like the reality of the situation, unfortunately. But it makes it harder for, I think, young girls pursuing music to be like, okay, I'm not XYZ, so maybe I'm not gonna like make it big in the music industry, because you definitely have to have that like sex appeal more or less.
Yeah,
Like.
I agree too. And I think like it's when you see people like Lizzo, for example, it's really inspiring to see, and it's really refreshing because it gets exhausting just seeing these really thin, and I know I'm also a white woman too, but like these thin white women that are constantly just being pushed out into the music industry. And it's, a lot of them do have talent and they work really, really hard, but it's really difficult when you're someone of a different color and you don't see anyone that's like you. Like, I can only imagine how hard that must be, to never see anyone that's similar to you or like you, right? So what else do you guys think about that? Does anyone else have any thoughts on that?
Well, I kind of like it when things are kind of kept classy in a way. It's just my own personal preference, some sort of art or some sort of standard or classiness to it. Yeah, because you're putting that image out into the world, and there are impressionable minds out there, and we already have a lot of like people just kind of just exploiting certain things, and if you can keep a part of the population kind of in some way, shape, or form, like create a safe shelter for them, where they can be like, oh, that person doesn't do this, it's okay for me to also not do that, then that's good, just to live a happy, healthy, respectful life, and just know that that's okay if
Absolutely.
You
yeah, it is good to keep yourselves like, just so like everyone has their own opinion and their own like thoughts on things, and I think that's a really good point. Like, for the people that do want to respect them, like just to respect that, like I think that's super important. What do you think, 0Stella?
Well, Gwen Stefani is another one that I looked up to a lot as a kid, and she, to me, would kind of display sexuality and a lack of weight as more of a sign of fitness, you know, like you knew she wasn't starving herself. She was like an avid swimmer, and she'd always do like 200 sit-ups before a show, and like she'd climb the rafters of venues that she was at and all kinds of things like that. I think it's really important to acknowledge who's calling the shots whenever someone's sexuality is displayed. The context is everything. So but I can absolutely sympathize with young. Also, it depends on what genre you're going into, right? Like if you're aiming for pop is absolute market wise, it's so superficial, and they know sex sells, and you know, you have to be so much younger to get into that industry as well, and to be able to achieve a level of success by a certain age. Whereas rock and roll, you can be going into your 70s and no one really cares about a few wrinkles. So I think I understand why like aspiring pop stars acquiesce to suggestions or directives to go that direction, and I think it's really exciting to see when they're able to like persevere in their career and actually emerge as like, you know, a full woman, and then declare their sexuality on their own terms. Like Christina Aguilera is a great example of that. But then so I don't know, like and as well, it depends on what age you are in the industry as an observer, as a, you know, a consumer of the music too, because like every young girl is impressionable. But I think it's really important to, even Lizzo is one person, but she's on the more mature end of pop stardom, you know, so that's why people like Billie Eilish are so valuable, to be able to just display that disregard for that entire part of the industry and still make it on her own terms. I think she's just the best thing going.
She is super inspiring. Like the fact that she's gone this long and she's still true to her style of like concealing herself because her music is more important than her body. Like I think that's like mind-blowing. What do you ladies think about social media? Do you think it has a negative or positive effect with females in the music industry?
I think it can kind of be both. Just kind of depends on, it's like anything, it's just like you have to take from it what you want to take from it, kind of thing. So it definitely not great for your mental health, just seeing these pictures of like perfect looking people all the time. But I like to use social media to kind of find things that just like inspire me, in terms of like songwriting and stuff like that. So it can be really helpful too.
Yeah, a little bit of balance of both. Totally. What else do you ladies think about social media?
It could be great for making connections that you wouldn't have had the opportunity to make. Like right now, if it weren't for social media, we wouldn't be here doing this live stream.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point. What do you think, 0Stella?
Well, I agree. I wouldn't be able to run half of my business if it weren't for Facebook and Instagram. And this is phenomenal. Like we'd all be absolutely losing the plot at home if we didn't have this opportunity to connect virtually. And I think it's really kind of easy to be biased in your point of view in terms of splitting a subject like this into genders, because I think it's so universally destructive to your mental health and stuff like that. And I can only imagine that men go through the exact same thing. They're just measuring themselves in a different way against other people. So I think you're dead right. Like balance is key. And I mean, on the other end of it, running something in social media is so anxiety inducing as well, because there's so much to keep up with and you always feel like you're trying to get ahead of the curve and you never do.
Absolutely.
It's a lot.
Yeah. I actually have one more question here and then we're going to sign off for the day. What do you think we as females can do to help spread awareness about equality and empowerment in the music industry?
Maybe writing songs that you know other people will relate to, and just sometimes if you get to know a person, you just feel a connection with them. So if we see strangers out on the street, we might just not think much of them. But if you are actually going to stop and have a conversation or hear about something that happened in their life, then you start to open your eyes to, oh, that person is a real human being, and sympathy and all of that is built. So if you can tell your stories and your struggles and everything in the form of lyrics and melodies, I think we'll see each other as more like human beings.
Yeah, I really love that, just seeing each other as human beings, because that comes down to it. Like, even celebrities, we're all just human beings trying to make it through this life. So I really like that. That's really cool. What do you ladies think?
I think more than anything, just kind of keep doing what we're doing and just do it like unapologetically is just
yes.
And that's what kind of other girls are gonna like look up to. And yeah.
I love that word, unapologetically, because that's super important. Yeah. What do you think, 0Stella?
I think all the ladies are spot on so far. They're gorgeous sentiments. And I think also it's really important to remember to reach out to other people in the community that that wouldn't necessarily be able to reach out to you. For instance, I work with, Calgary was the first city I moved to when I moved out west. And so I've been very involved with Girls Rock Camp in Calgary. And so just offering that to young girls to help them get into music and find their sense of power within that environment is fantastic. And then also, like, I love doing fundraisers for like things like the Brenda Strafford Centre, who are like a shelter for women and children escaping domestic violence and that kind of thing. So I think it's really important to build each other up around one another, but also to reach out to people who can't get into our circle and bring them into it as well.
I love that. Those answers were all amazing. That's super awesome. Thank you so much, ladies. That is actually all the time we have for today. Once again, I really want to thank you guys for being a part of this. 0Stella, Marley, and Carolina Maria, you guys are all amazing to have on. So my name's Millie Rouge. I am from Vienna, Whyte. This has been the Roundtable Talk with Vienna Whyte. This will be live on Friday afternoon at 1 p.m. on our YouTube channel. So I'll send you ladies a link so you can have it as well. Make sure you like and subscribe and hit the follow button and the bell button down below to be notified as we put out shows Monday to Friday each day. So we'll be releasing daily. So I'll sign off here and I'll let you ladies say your goodbye, and then we're out for the day. So whoever wants to say bye first, jump in.
Bye, Millie. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, bye. Thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. It was wonderful meeting all of you.
You as well. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.